Gemara Pesachim Daf Lamed Dalet. All the learning for the Chiddush of Tevis has been sponsored as a schos Lila Neshama for Leah Rasha Bas Ari Leib, as well as a schos Lila Neshama for Ari Leib and Yaakov. The learning of the entire Olam should be a schos Lila Neshmasam as well. Tonight's shir particularly is sponsored as a schos Refuah Shlema for Yisrael Shalom ben Nechama, a young 3-year-old boy who is undergoing surgery at the time of this recording. Let's hope in Mirza Hashem that by the time everyone learns this shir, that we should already see Yeshuas. Of course, Olachem Chamizach Ben Malki Demir Ben Ikir many of Vega Chaim Mesar Shem Sivin Eitzel Sar Baskan Vizim Chai Sayus Chaim Saresi Yosol Ben Mindel as if in the Javalei Shalom Vasam Viv Shem Fikum Shem Chad Vol Dabni Tirid No Chanavid Baruch Shem Musa Michal Sipal Nathil Huva Mersim Hashester B'Sech Israel as well as Chosiva V'Gatalei Pas Ita. We pick it up in the bottom of Lami Gimel Amid Beis Gufa. Whenever we have a Gufa, obviously we're going and we're continuing yesterday's discussion, but the Gemara is going to explain it, so let's let the Gemara explain. Says the Gemara Gufa, about 6 lines to the bottom, Lam Gimel Am Beis. Gufa madalikin bepas b'shemen shel truma shenet mis. You let a light with bread and oil of truma that became tamei. That's a din. Abaye Amar comes like Abaye and he says, Mishvei the Chizkiya of Rav Amar Tvei Rav Yitzchak Bar Marsa Amar Rav Huna that Loishanu Elapas. That this din they allowed to use this tamei bread is only by bread. Aval Chiti, but by wheat kernels lie. Wheat kernels, when they're tamei, you're not allowed to use them as fire. You're not allowed to use them as fuel. What's the reason? Says the Gemara. Shamayavu Bandidei Takala. Because it might come to Tekala, as Rashi on 2 lines to the bottom, Rashi speaks out, we're afraid that if you keep them in out, you might come to eat them, and they're tamei, which you cannot eat. That is the first din of today. For Rav Yochanan Amar, 2 lines to the bottom, even the wheat kernels, you're allowed to, yes, use as fuel. Why? Says the Gemara, why are we worried that it's going to come to the Tekala? Someone might stick around and someone might come to use them. Someone might come to eat them and they're tamei. K'dam Rav Ashi, as Rav Ashi says, we flip it along. To Lamedal Amar Aleph, Bishal Liksa, Umi Ista. The case is when you boiled them up and when you threw them amongst the firewood. Hachanami b'shaliksa umeista. Again, they're boiled up. The kernels are boiled, and therefore you're not going to eat them, as well as they're thrown amongst the firewood. Therefore, we're not afraid to come to eat them because they're sitting there with all the fuel, sitting disgusting with all the firewood. We don't have to be worried. Says the Gemara, Rav Ashi. Where did Rav Ashi get this din? Rav Avin bar Rav Acham Rav Yitzchak on the following din. Avashal Gabol shall be Rebbe Hayu. Avashal was in the house of the Beis Rabbi, and who heat up food with the chitin, the wheat of the truma. Tamei, that was tamei for what? Lolish ben isa b'tayr, in order to knead together with it the dough that is tar. Says the Gemara, why was he doing that? Why wasn't he afraid that it's going to come to be metame? It's going to come to make it tamei. Amar Rav Ashi, you know why he wasn't afraid? Shaliksa meista was boiled in this boiling water, and it was thrown amongst the firewood, and therefore that is the same din by us. This is the root din, and the same din is going to be by us, that we don't have to be concerned because it's boiled up and deposited amongst the firewood. Says the Gemara, Abaya bar Avin, Rachlinia bar Avin, Tanu Trumas Bei Rabba. This begins a very, very lengthy discussion, which is going to be the entire daf today. This discussion about Trumais, that Abaya bar Avin, Rachlinia bar Avin, we're learning the Masechta of Truma and Bei Rabba. Pagabu, Rava Bar Masta bumped into them and Amarlu, and he said, "Mayamrita b'Trumas Teveimar." What are they saying in the base message today? What's the hack? What's going on in the Masechta of Trumais? Amarlu, they said to him, "Oh my gosh, look, what's bothering you? Sounds like there's something that you want to know about Trumais." Amarlu, the following is bothering us. Again, this is going to sound a bit random, this entire discussion. Eventually, all the way on Lamadal and Beis, this is going to connect back to din that we had yesterday, the day before. The din when you're squeezing the tutim and reminding these dates and these grapes, and whether there's going to be kedusha to them or not. But again, let's wait till the base and everything will fall back into place. So again, says the Gemara, what is the story with Trumais? What's the question? So now we learn to the Mishnah. Shtile Trumais shenitma. You have a plant, a shoot of Trumais that became tamei. And what do? You have this tamei plant, vishatalan, and you replant the tamei plant. What is the halacha? It no longer makes something tamei, it's tar now. It regrew, it has a new life at a very simplistic level. Therefore, the new life makes it tar, and the new plant that grows is tar. However, the Mishnah continues a cryptic and interesting statement. It's tar, but you're not allowed to eat it with truma. Very, very interesting din, which Gemara immediately asks. I don't understand. What's going on? If it's tar, why can't you eat it? So Amrulay, that was the question they had about Mesechta Trumas. They responded, what does it mean that it's aser? It means it still retains the original Truma. Again, what do we have over here? We have a little sapling, a little stalk, that is Truma, that you replanted, and now we want to know the item that regrows from there. So true, says the Gemara, if the original item was tummy, the new item that grows will be tar, but it still will have the sanctity of Truma, and therefore Zarim, non-kohanim will not be allowed to eat it. Says the Gemara, what's the chiddush of this din? That when you plant truma, the offshoots are not allowed to be consumed by Yisraelim. Gedulei truma truma. You know what the chiddush is? That which grows from truma is din of truma. Says the Gemara, that's not a chiddush. Tanino, we already learned in the Mishnah. Gedulei truma truma. So that can't be the chiddush. V'cheitei, maybe you tell me gedulein, the offshoots of offshoots, u'maika mashvalan. And what's the chiddush? B'davar she'ein zarei kala. If the seed is not used up, it's an item that you can plant and plant and plant and plant. Hanami Tanino, we also learned in the Mishnah. Hatevel, when it comes to tevel, gedula mutarim, that which grows from tevel is mutter, b'davar shezarai kala. But when is it mutter? It's only mutter if the seed is finished. Meaning, if you plant something, it grows one item, so even though you started with tevel, the second item that grows is going to be mutter. But that's only because the seed is finished up. Avol, what's the obvious implication? But the seed is not used up. I feel like you do not started. Even the offshoots of offshoots is forbidden to eat. So ask the Gemara, what is the chiddush that you're telling me? Again, the Mishnah said that you plant truma temeya plants, that which grows from it, number one is tar, but number two is you're not allowed to eat it. What is this din? If it's tar, why can't you eat it? You just told me the reason is that Zarim Yisraelim can't eat it. We already learned that. Gedulin truma, we have a din of truma. Gedulim has the same din, so what's going on? Says the Gemara, Ishtiku. He was quiet, he didn't have an answer. Amr Leis responded, did you hear anything about this? Again, this was the whole story of that Ravashi. This was the whole story that Rav and Baravin and Chalina Baravin, they were learning by Rava. Said, did you hear anything? So Amr Lahu, so Rava responded, Hachi Amr Rav Shisha says, Maya Asurin, what does it mean that this item, this plant that grows, is Asur? Asurin Likoyhanim. It's also to Kohanim, which is a chiddush, because we just said that which grows is tar. It started off to it grows tar, but yet a Kohen cannot eat it. Why? Because it became possible Hesach Hadas. What's Hesach Hadas? We know Hesach Hadas is when you don't think about something. Hesach Hadas is when someone takes off his tzitzis and he's not wearing them for 3 hours. That's Hesach Hadas. They're not in his brain. He has to make a new bracha. So over here says the Gemara, if I have a plant which is tummy, and I replant that plant, I'm not thinking about it anymore because I know it's always tummy. So even though the new shoot that grows is really tar, it's going to be tummy from a chuma, from a kohen eating it. Why? Because of this issue of Hesach Hadas, because you weren't thinking about it. So now the Gemara is going to try to figure out, what is this idea that Hesach Hadas, not thinking about the plant, forbids a kohen from eating it? Says the Gemara, there's two ways of viewing Hesach Hadas. As the Gemara now is explaining, is Hesach Hadas a intrinsic issue that just like you can't keep a carbon around for an extra day, just like you can't have thoughts about eating in the wrong place? There's another idea that Hesach Hadas, if you're not always cognizant of the carbon, you're not always thinking about it, you plant it and you forget about it, set it and forget it, that is a psul ba'etzim, we'll call it. It's a invalidation in the item itself. Psul ha'gofaf, shapir. Says the Gemara, then it makes a lot of sense, I can understand it. Why? When you forgot about it, the kohen can't eat it afterwards. Even though it's tahar, because even though that which grows out of the ground, the new plant that grows from this tummy item is actually tahar, because it's a new birth. However, the fact you weren't thinking about it, that it makes it possible. A different mandam argues that the psul of Hesach Hadas is not intrinsic. It's not that the item automatically is possible for the mere fact you weren't thinking about it. No. You know why it's possible? It's possible because it might have become tummy because you weren't thinking about it. According to that man, Damar, Michael, remember, what are you going to say? Meaning, what are you going to say? Because very good, you weren't thinking about it, but did it become tummy? Of course not, because there's a new plan crew, which is tar. But the Brisa said it, you're not allowed to eat it, so what would be the reason? Now we go into these two opinions of Hesach Hadas. Deitmar, we learned Hesach Hadas of Yechlan Amar Psul Tamave. It's possible that what we're afraid it might have become tummy. It's an intrinsic issue. Now the Gemara explains further. Rav Yochanan Amar, and again, we're going to go segue right now into Rav Yochanan Reish Lakish. What is a psul of Hesach Hagof? And eventually we're going to pull this back to us. Rav Yochanan Amar Psul Tama. They were afraid it's going to become Tameh. Explains the Gemara. Let's say Eliyahu Navi comes and says, by the way, that item you were Mesiach Taitai. You weren't thinking about it. So you think now it's Tameh. Why is Tameh? Because someone made a touch it. Says Eliyahu Navi, I was watching it. It's not Tameh. We'll believe Eliyahu Navi. Parashim and Lakish Amar. What does he hold? Psola Govave, that the mere fact that wasn't on your brain, the mere lack of cognizance makes it forbidden. We will not care what Eliyahu says, because not a point that we're afraid someone made a tummy. It's the mere fact it wasn't on your brain. That is machlekes Rav Shimon Lakish and Rav Yochanan. That is machlekes whether we say Rav Shimon Lakish says psul haguf, Rav Yochanan says that it is a psul tuma. Says the Gemara Esvei. Now we're still within this new discussion of Rav Yochanan and Rav Shimon Lakish will level psul as Hesach Hadas, which again will eventually tie back to we're trying to figure out what was our original case. We plant a truma plant that is tamei. The shoot that grows off of it said it is tar, but Koyanim cannot eat it. That is the original din that we're eventually going to have to come back to answer. But right now we're in the middle of a segue, figuring out what is the din of Hesach Hadas. We decided it's machlekes Rav Yochanan and Rav Shimon Lakish. Says the Gemara, Rav Yochanan asks Rav Shimon Lakish, what does he say? I'm sorry, he says the son of Rav Shimon ben Yochanan ben Shmuel ben Yochanan ben Breika. And no, it's not working. There you go. Lul katan hayabin kevis the mizbeach. There was a small cavity, a small hole between the ramp and the mizbeach itself. B'ma'arava shel kevis on the western side of the ramp. Sheshama yizarkim suli chatas. Inside that hole, they would throw any carbon chatas that became possible oif of a bird. V'tu ubar surasan, and you will leave it there until it gets disgusting. It doesn't have its original form, and then v'yatzal b'yisasir, you bring it out to burn it. Adin a mishnah that you have a hole on the mizbeach. They would throw the items and let it turn discussing there. Says the Gemara, if you're going to tell me that why is Hesach Hadas, why is lack of knowledge makes something possible, because why psul tama, we're afraid it becomes tamei. So now I understand. That's why you have to leave it there until it becomes disgusting. Why? Because at the moment that you put it there, it's not disgusting. And it was a suffix. We have to be worried. Maybe Eliyahu Navi is going to come and say that it's tar. So that's why you have to leave it there until it loses its shape, and then you're going to burn it. If you're telling me that what is this psul? What's like is not in your brain. It's a psul be'etzem. It's intrinsically a problem as soon as it's not in your brain. Why do we have to leave it there until it becomes disgusting? But now we learned in the Mishnah, the following is the rule. As we flip over to Lamed Dalet and Beis, the following is the rule. Kol shepsulei begufai yisrav miyad. Anything that is a psul in the item itself, you burn it right away. Bidam ubebailim, but if it's a psul in the blood of the owner, then to arbitz rasim nasavisa, if you have to let it get disgusting. So I asked the Gemara, seemingly we have a clear-cut proof that it can't be a psul agof. It has to be a psul tama. Because if it's a psul haguf, it's an intrinsic psul. What was the reason they threw it into that hole? They have to wait for it to become disgusting. Who cares if it becomes disgusting? When something is a psul be'etzim, a psul intrinsically, the halacha is right away you can burn it. Amar Lei responds, Hi Tanatam Devei Rabbi Avuah Damar Afilu Pigol Dani Batsura. No, your whole premise is wrong. You made a premise, you had an idea that when something is intrinsically possible, then it doesn't have to become disgusting, automatically allowed to burn it. That's not true. Even pigol, which is a psul be'etzim invalidation, an item itself, still you need to wait for it to lose its form, and that's what this Brisa says when you throw the psul, the suffix puzzle carbon knife, that you throw it in the hole. Says the Gemara, Esvei. 5 lines from the top. Nitma ishenifsala basar. If the carbon becomes tummy or apostle, or you bring it outside the curtains of Lezoim or Yizraik, you're still allowed to do the zrika of the animal. Rabbi Yeshua Aimer, Lo Yizraik, you're not allowed to do the zrika. Umayda Rabbi Yeshua, who says you're not allowed to do the zrika is Mayda She'im Zarak. You weren't supposed to do it. This carbon was a apostle carbon. It was a tummy carbon. So you're not supposed to do this rika. But says if you're sure that if you did it, harza, it's going to work. Just one of the items that the Kohen Gadol wearing the tzitz is going to atone for this mistake. Says the Gemara, my nifsal abes chadas. What did the Brisa mean that said you have a carbon that becomes tame? See what that means? Bes chadas. It wasn't on your brain. Explains the Gemara. If you're going to tell me that what's as chadas, what's lack of knowledge, lack of cognizance, is ipsol that what we're afraid it will come tame. So now it makes a lot of sense that the tzitz is going to come along. It's a toma issue, and on toma issues, the tzitz comes along and helps out, and therefore, b'di'evet, if you sprinkle the blood, it's going to work. If you're going to tell me that no, it's intrinsically puzzle, it validates it within the item itself. I might heard that it's what's going to help the Kohen Gadol wearing a tzitz. The item itself is no good. Who cares? They did this rika. You should be up the creek. Says Gemara, we have a raya that it's psul tama. Answers the Gemara, no proof. My nifsal b'tful yoim. The price is not talking about chadas at all. You thought that this whole premise of this price is not talking about chadas. Not true. It's talking about that it's full yoim. Someone who's tummy touched the animal. He says Gemara, I do tummy. It's the same case of tummy. Says Gemara, trei gamnei tummy. There are two cases of tummy. Okay, that was our segue. Rabbi Yochanan, Shimon, Lakish. What is this new psul of chadas when you're not thinking about something? Machlek is whether it's intrinsically or whether it's afraid that you're going to become tummy. Nafkamina Eliyahu Hanavi. Says the Gemara. Kisal Ravin Amar L'Shmaiti Kamei Rav Yirmiyah. When Ravin went up, he said over this teaching of Rav Yirmiyah. V'amar Rav Yirmiyah responded, "Ba'abloha itib shai." These silly and foolish Babylonians, they live in a dark land. They say these dark and silly things. Says the Gemara, did not hear that which Ish Lakish said named Rabbi Yeshua. The water of the Chag. When is there water of a Chag? On Sukkot. The only time there's a din of Nisach HaMayim, they would pour water into the Mizbeach. What's the halacha shenitvu? They drew the special water, but then that water became tummy. Now they don't know what to do. Says the Brisa, what do? Has shakon. You can purify water. Just like if you have a keli that becomes tummy, I can throw it in the mik. Says the Brisa, if I have water that becomes tummy, I could also throw it in the mik. How do you throw water in the mik? It's called hashaka. Shaka is actually a very big concept, how all our mikvahs work. If you ever notice in a mikvah, you have that hole and water flows back and forth through the hole. What's going on over there, it's called hashaka. The water is kissing the water from one bar, one cavity, one place that you're being taival in, is kissing and touching the water from the other cavity, the water where the actual the mayim geshamim is. The real mikvah water, we'll call it, and that allows it to become tar. So over here, what happens is when you have this me'achag, you have the water of the nisach hamayim on sukkis that becomes tamei. What do? You touch it to the water in the mikvah, and that becomes tar. Says the Gemara, again, me'achag shenitmu, it became tamei. Heshekon, if you first touch the water to other waters, and then you sanctify them again, the water, and you said, I'm going to use this on the mizbeach for the mayim nisachim. The higher it works. Hektishan, v'achag what if you did in the reverse? You first said this water, this can be for the carbon, this can be for the netzachim to pour on the mizbech, and then you went and you did a shaka, you kissed and you made it touch the water to be metayirit. That doesn't work. Tameim, it doesn't work. Says Mar Mechti. Let's figure this out. Zriya ninu. It's planting it. What do you mean it's planting it? What do we start today's discussion? All the way back in the Daf Yomi. We said you have a tamei plant. That you plant. What do we say? We said that which grows is automatically tar. The new shoot, the new growth is tar. Says the Gemara, when I take water and I touch this water to this water, in a way it's planting it in the water. It's a new growth. It should be tar. Says the Gemara Mechti. Zriya ninu is a planting. Says, I don't understand. What's the difference? If I first made a hektish and then I touched it and I kissed it. I first touched it, kissed it, then I made a hektish. What's going on? It's called a new planting. Just like when I take the tree and I stick it in the ground, whenever it grows, it becomes tar. When I take the tamei water and I touch the tar, what does it make it tar? Who cares if I sanctify it first or not? Says the Gemara. Almas, what do you see? What do you see for the fact that there's a difference, says Gemara? There's no din of zriya, of planting to purify something when it comes to an item that is already hektish. So therefore, if you took the water and you were maktish and it belongs to the base of Mikdash for the Nesachim, and then you go to purify it, it doesn't work. It's only going to work if you purify it prior to making it hektish. Says the Gemara, Halchanami in our case, all the way back in Amud Aleph, Ein Zreya Truma. There's no planting for Truma. It's not going to make the item tahar. And actually, well, let's look at one Rashi over here. Rashi says about 7 lines into the wide lines. There says Ein Zreya Lehektish Litaroi Bekach to make it tahar. Temalu Asai Bekachim. It's a special maila. Really, planting something does make it tahar, but a special maila with kachim. Now, when you're planting this item, what was this item? Wasn't it something that's regularly tamei? It was truma that is tamei. It was kachim that is tamei. An item of kachim maila, a special maila made by kachim. Rashi finishes off, Achanabi Israel Truma, Lemailo also, so too by our case of Truma to be a special Maila. And that's the reason why, even though, by definition, when you planted that plant, the item that grew it is tar, right? It's a tar milatamu. Still, you cannot eat it. Why can you not eat it? A special Maila they did by kachim. Says the Gemara, Yosef Avdimi v'Karmel Hashmaitze, who's saying over this teaching, Amalei Abaya, Hekdishan bikli kamar avul bebeloi. This din of hektish, when you made the item hektish, you took this water and you made it hektish. Was that only bikli, the water was in a vessel, or even if you did it balpeh? Says the Gemara, avul balpeh. This special maila that we elevate and we view something on a higher plateau and we don't allow it to become tar. Ask the Gemara, is that only if it's in a kli sharis, or that's even if you did a balpeh not in a kli? Even if you did a bepeh, even if you didn't put it into kli sharis, they still made this maila. I didn't hear this. And with this we're going to conclude, tying us all the way back to the reason why this discussion began. You have grapes that become tamei. If you squash them and then you sanctify them, tahirin. If you first sanctify them and then you squeeze them, tamein. Grapes only have kedusha bad. Grapes do not have. And this Kedushas Kli. Why not? Because Kedushas Kli is only if you put an item in a Kli Shares, if this holy vessel of the Beis HaMikdash holds the item. Grapes are not called being held by the item because grapes don't need a Kli. When it comes to water, the water of the Nesachim, the water needs a Kli. So then we had a potential, is it the water of the Kli or is it Balpeh? But we see the grapes is for sure only Balpeh. So you just Beninu. And still what do we see? Avid Rabban and Maila. They made a maila. Says the Gemara, we have an answer to your question. You want to know, is it only if it's in this kli? Or is this din also when it's done verbally? It's the same din when it's done verbally. Amar Rav Yosef, Anovim kamrit. Hacham Anovim shal truma. We're talking about grapes of truma askinan. The kedushas peti, do kedushas kli damya. Says the Gemara, no shaychis. When it comes to truma, there's a special din by truma. That when you sanctify truma, bipeh, even though it's not in a kli sharis, it has the same din as if it's in a kli. Avlahani debai kli bapeh loy v'rabbanan ma'ila. But these items, Avlahani, but these items, debai kli, that they need the vessel, the waters of the sachim, bapeh, when you did it verbally, loy v'rabbanan ma'ila. And therefore, that's the reason why it's not going to be sanctified to the next level if it's done bapeh. Will only be if it's done inside a kli. End of discussion. Let's just read 2 more lines and we'll call it a day. Tarchan, if you squash the grapes of filu tuva, it sounds like you could do many times. Ask the Gemara, Mi'am Rav Yechlan Hachiv, Am Rav Yechlan Hanavim Shenitmu Tarchan. That's why this whole discussion, this whole lengthy discussion, all the way back from Amud Health, when we try to figure out when we planted this plant of Truma, that was tummy, and that which grew out of it was tar, but you can't eat it. What's going on over here? What's the case? Back and forth. Formerly we discussed that it's our case, that it's a special maila that did by Hektish, special maila of Truma. Says the Gemara, I don't understand. It sounds like that case, and then we brought in the case of the grapes that you're squeezing. Sounds like it's even many grapes. Part of Yechon taught us yesterday that grapes that become tamei, you have to do pachas make a beya, because if not, it'll get tamei. The one answer. One case where the grape touched a rishon, so it itself is a sheni, and then the liquid that comes out will get the status of a rishon. You know, the liquids get pumped up a level, and therefore that's going to be metamet. In our case, the nagu b'sheni davlu shlishi. The grapes touch a sheni, so the grapes itself become a shlishi. The liquids that come out will have no tam at all, and that's the reason why even if you do many grapes, and not only is less than a gazayis, we'll pick it up from Rava in tomorrow.